Now, in the last lecture, we started to really set up a saga workflow that makes more sense, where we listen to certain actions and then simply execute a saga, which then handles the side effects that are relevant for this action. Now, one important note. I did import take every, which sets up our listener, from redux saga. This actually should be redux saga/effects. Just a little side note, that's important. Now with that, let's move on and let's make sure that we actually handle all side effects in our sagas. So if we stick to the off.js file for now, let's go through it from top to bottom and see what else we should put into a saga. Now off.start doesn't need a saga. It's an action creator which just returns an action. So it's a pure action creator, no side effects inside of it. The same is true for off.success. And for off.fail. All these action creators really just, create actions. We already cleaned up logout. There is one thing we could do though. I really put this action here. Now, we can definitely use this approach where we just put an object. We could even get rid of all action creators now that we use sagas. But we could also say that we want to use action creators to have a reliable way of, creating our actions. And therefore, we should probably also use an action creator here in our saga instead of hard coding the action object in here. So I will actually create a new action creator in the off.js file, and I'll name it logout succeed. This will be a function. And in here, I will now return the object I hard-coded into the saga. So this action here, I'll cut it from there and return it in logout succeed instead. You could also name it did logout or whatever you want. Now this constant here in my action file should therefore also be exported, which it is, so that I can use it. And now in my off.js file, in the saga file, I'll import everything as actions from actions index, where I now, if we check the index.js file in the actions folder, where I now should store it, should add it to the export here from the off file. So here it's logout succeed. So now in my off.js file in the sagas folder, I can now put actions logout succeed and simply execute this action creator here. So now with that, I have a consistent approach of using action creators, and I no longer need to import action types in here because I don't hard code my action in here. But we wanted to look for other actions to replace with sagas, right? So we did it for logout. Now check off timeout also is causing some side effects here. We actually have some asynchronous code in here setting a timer where we dispatch an action every time, the timer finishes. This is something we definitely want to do in a saga instead. So let's do that. I'll head over to off.js in the sagas folder, and I'll first of all create a new generator function. So a function with a star after the function keyword. Now we named the off action creator here, check off timeout. So in our saga file, we could name it check off timeout saga. We could also name it timed out logout saga, whatever you like. I'll stick to this name. There I'll also get the action. And now in here, in this function, I want to execute kind of the same code I executed in my action creator, where I had a timeout and an expiration time, and where I then also dispatched an action. So let's first of all copy it over into our generator, but this is not really how we want to execute it. In a generator, we'll instead rewrite it. And first of all, I can import a helper function, not from redux saga effects, but from redux saga just like that. And that helper function here is called delay. And as you might guess, it delays the execution of the next step. So what I do is I yield delay and I enter the amount of time I want to delay the execution. Now, the expiration time is not an argument we get here, we get an action here instead. But I simply assume that this action will have the expiration time field. And I will delay the continued execution for this amount of time. Now, with that, what we can do is we pause the execution here. And once we're done, once this succeeds, I really want to log the user out. So here I would yield put and simply execute actions, not to be confused with our argument here. Actions refers to the actions we import. Execute actions log out, which will initiate the logout and actually lead to this saga being executed after a while. So now we can remove this other code here, and this is how we would write our wait for the token to expire and then log out action code in a saga style. Now in off.js, check off timeout here is now no longer an action creator where I really want to execute my code here. Instead here, I simply just want to dispatch an action which leads to this saga generator here being started. So for that, I'll add a new action type. I'll export a constant in there, which I'll name off check timeout. Use this as a string identifier here too. And now I simply want to dispatch this action here. So type action types off check timeout, and also important, pass on the expiration time because I'm trying to extract it in my saga. So now with that, we got our check off timeout function running. Now to see if that really works, I'm temporarily replacing the real expiration time with 10 to see if that works. Before we can see if anything works though, we need to go to the index.js file, and thus far I'm only listening to the off initiate logout action type. Now we got a new saga and a new action type, so let's import both. I'll now also import the check off timeout saga from the off file, and I'll yield another action type here, take every action types off check timeout, and then execute my check off timeout saga. Now before testing it, let's fix one tiny mistake I just spotted. When I put an action to be executed after the expiration time, that of course is referring to the action creator, and therefore I should execute it as a function to really put the action this action creator creates. Now with that, let's go back to our application and let's try this out. Let's first of all reload the application. We see off initiate logout because it tries to auto sign us in, which fails. So let's now really sign in. And the expected result would be that we're signed out really fast thereafter because we have such a short expiration time. And indeed, we can see that here we are successfully signed in. We get a token. Then we set off check timeout. And pretty much immediately after it, because we only have a time span of 10 milliseconds, off initiate logout is called. And thereafter, of course, off logout due to our saga. So this is now all running correctly. You also see that these yields of take every seem to be executed right after each other. So it's not like we wait for this action here to occur for this to run. Actually, this becomes even clearer if I switch the position, because this action off initiate logout will appear right at the start when it tries to auto sign us in, and still it will also successfully listen to that and not wait for this to occur before it sets up this listener. I can prove this by simply reloading the page, and you see still off initiate logout and off logout is executed, even though off check logout didn't occur yet. So with that, we got this set up. Now in the off.js file in the actions folder, in our action creator for check off timeout, I'll of course no longer use the 10 milliseconds, but the real expiration time now to pass it on with the action, because again, just to remember you, we use expiration time in our check off timeout saga. We access it on our action here. So with that, let's move on and let's see what else we can put into a saga from our action creator file.